Everyone's afraid of something, no matter how unlikely or justified the fear might be. Some games are created to startle you and push your wits to their limits, like Capcom's classic Resident Evil series. While other games, especially many early titles on the NES, were designed to give you relief and take you away from your worries. Sometimes the latter can provoke one of your phobias, even though it wasn't the developer's intention. I had a small selection of games to play when I was a kid, and my parents had a little game called the NewZealand Story for the NES, which was renamed to Kiwi Craze in the United States for whatever reason. In it, you played as the most zoologically inaccurate kiwi bird as you run and jumped your way through 20 levels of applaudable variety. All the way from the sleepy lions of Auckland's zoos to the chilly peaks of Mount Cook, dodging hundreds of geographically accurate Mega Man spikes along the way. It must have been hell to film the Lord of the Rings movies here. So what's this bright and colorful kids game that looks as cute and innocent as can be have to do with phobias? The irrational fear of being eaten. I'd like to introduce you to the first boss of this classic. This frozen ice whale lurking in its rather prickly zoo cage. I'm pretending that I'm 7 years old again in my gameplay footage to illustrate my feelings a little bit better. Keep in mind, I was used to contemporary games like Super Mario Bros. And Gradius, where all you needed to do to beat the bosses was shoot them until they go down in flames. My first instinct was to pump the Frosty Fiend full of lead, which passed right through its thick, blubbery skin. There was no feedback to indicate I was doing any damage, but I presumed it had to be working because it's a video game, and that's how video games are, right? It went smoothly for a few moments until the beast's mouth dropped wide open and made a beeline straight for me. I kept shooting, not realizing what would happen next, and then within a moment's notice, everything went dark as the game took a moment to drop me within the belly of the whale. Now, I watched Pinocchio when I was 6 or 7, but I couldn't imagine being in that situation without any firewood to burn to make it sneeze either. It didn't take long for panic to settle in as I was freaking out, pressing every button, wondering what in the world I was supposed to do. Little did my pea-sized brain realize, my arrows were actually doing damage. The sheets of ice around the water mammal were flashing too, and that should have been a dead giveaway. But it never actually clicked with me, even though they tried to make it obvious. I was one really dumb child. It wouldn't be the last time something obvious flew over my head either. Once I recovered from my inevitable digestion, I reckoned I had to shoot it in the mouth and melt it from the front before it could munch me. Which went about as well as you'd expect. Didn't even leave a scratch. Either I'd end up in the mouth, or I'd jump into a blowhole icicle trying to get out of the way, which only made me feel powerless as I had no clue what to do to make the battle go faster. This whale, according to myself when I was 7 years old, was completely invincible. Yes, that had to be it, I thought, since I wouldn't have the internet until I was a year older. Despite its cutesy facade, this whale is as mighty as the menacing Monstro, and my pitiful attacks only serve to amuse the thing that's always going to be bigger and badder than I could ever be. Which left me confused and infuriated for days on end. It left me wondering what to do with this game since I only had 7 other games to play at that time, and I wasn't interested in my dad's battle chess cartridge. My parents paid good money for it, and they weren't going to return it since it was a decade too old to do that in 2002. So I had to keep playing this game I was afraid of. Eventually, some ideas started brewing in my head. What if I made a game out of all the dodging inside the whale's stomach? How long could I last in the humid confines of my fleshy prison before all 4 acid droplets would fall down at once to break me into soft belly pudge? Quite a while, it turns out. I paid close attention to which drops on the saliva-lined ceiling stopped animating to see which one was going to fall next, and moved quickly accordingly. I slowly but surely started getting used to these unusual surroundings, and before you know it, getting eaten didn't seem so scary after enough exposure. I didn't have to whine to my parents and beg them to buy a new game for me anymore because I wasn't so terrified at a New Zealand story after a week of honing my dodging skills inside the whale's belly. That made this an unforgettable gaming moment for me, overcoming one of my fears by facing it head on. Being a meal for the ice whale wasn't bad at all. Making my own fun out of inevitable doom alleviated all the fear of huge carnivores that I had, and my perspective started changing as I grew more fearless. That floating aquatic is an apex predator, and since I am its prey, I tantalized the monster's taste buds and satisfied its gluttonous hunger with my valuable energy added to its body. For a smoking hot chicken dinner ready to go down the hatch, I felt proud that I was able to make the superior creature's life better with what I was able to provide it. And that was going to be that. Of course, it was easy to discover the glaring safe spot in between the third and fourth droplet to destroy the whale from within once I replayed the game as a teenager. But by that point, I understood the concept of hitboxes, and I was slightly less stupid than I was when I was younger. However, the memory of discovering that it can be a lot of fun to get eaten lasted way longer than the feeling of accomplishment I got from beating the game that evening. So, what should you take away from this interesting memory of mine? Well, I'd say that sometimes all you need to change a fear into a fascination is to slow down and see things from another perspective, so it doesn't seem so alien anymore. Especially if you're able to interact directly with the fear, in this case. And it's also important to remember you don't have to play your favorite games by the rules either. It's fun to stretch your creativity to come up with games within a game. A lot of the most famous game modes of all time ended up starting off as silly ideas kids and teenagers came up with playing games like Quake or Super Smash Bros. Melee. And that idea might be ingenious enough to make a good game or mod on its own merits. You don't have to use the same methods I employed to overcome whatever fears you may be suffering from. Sometimes, simple exposure is all that you need to unalienize something strange and unsettling. Thank you very much for watching my weirdest video yet. Bet you didn't expect something like this out of the show, huh? Of course, if you liked it, make sure you slam that subscribe button and the bell right next to it. I've got multiple new episodes in the works, and I'm eager to share more of my personal favorite moments in the future. Until the next time, stay safe out there like usual. I'm out.